The one thing I want to talk about here before I switch to Harbinger and do Mjolnir is I want to talk about what I did to make currency this league. So it's only a 10-day league. I started a little late on the first day, and I accumulated a pretty massive amount of currency. I just want to talk about some of the economic tricks I used, and then just because these are things you can definitely use in the first several weeks of a league, and you can potentially make a lot of currency. So trick number one, my biggest tip for you guys. Find random items that are like missing a property. Craft a property on with your master bench and sell for like 1 to 5 chaos orbs. I probably sold well over 200 items this league just by doing this. So I'd take something like this that had a resist and a life and move speed, craft a resist. Find a belt that had good stats, but craft life on it because it was missing life. Similar thing here, craft resistance on the boots. But basically, anytime you find an item that someone could possibly want, like it's got life, it's missing a resist, all I did was I would throw a resist on it, and then just put it up for some amount of currency. And I've made a lot of sales off just like simple things where like I tossed 10 alts worth of life on an item and sold it for a chaos or 2. So if you're doing this in the first week of a league, one of the important things is that there's 2 essential points where people need to purchase new gear. The first point is after Act 5, the first time you've had your resistances knocked by 30%. Most people will want to buy new gear to get their resistances back up. The other time when you're going to need new gear is when you hit the end game. So this is around, like this is when you're in Act 10, either immediately before or immediately after you kill Katava. There's another 30% knockoff on your res. So the thing is, you can get through, all the way through to Act 5 and even into Act 6 with like leveling gear that you put on at the beginning of the game or put on in the first 15 levels. You can get really far with that, especially if you're a spellcaster. But then when you like are hitting that point at the end of Act 10 where you're doing your Merciless Lab, you're moving into maps, you need to be res capped, you need life. People want gear with life and resist and move speed on it. Well, for boots. So I made a lot of currency this league just by selling gloves, boots, and helmets that were like missing a stat. And that was a way that I made a lot of currency. So that's something I'm going to do. I may do it in Mayhem. I'm not even 100% sure yet if I'm going to play Mayhem or what I'm going to play, just because the league is voided and I can't take anything back. But it's a tactic that you can use to make a lot of currency just by selling those 1 to 5 chaos items that everybody potentially needs, because everyone is going to need to upgrade their helmet, their gloves, and their boots. Most people's builds are going to have at least 1, if not 2 or 3 of those pieces as rares, and that's a huge opportunity for you as a player to economically fill that gap, especially if you're one of the first people into maps. Being level 91 at the end of this league, I think I'm up in the low 6,000s in terms of what my rank is on the ladder. I didn't push super hard or anything like that, but yeah, if you're at a point where like let's say this was the beginning of a league, so a lot of my item sales, these sales fell off in the last couple days because I think a lot of people quit because they got to a point where they wanted to be for the rewards or that kind of thing. But if the league was still going, I would still be rolling in the trades, and at the peak of this during the week, I was getting like 2 to 3 sales per map that I was running, and it was a lot of currency. I big daddied one of my cousins a set of void batteries, for example, so I don't have as many chaoses now as I could have, but that was one of the things I did to make a lot of money. Tip number 2, look for alternative ways to make the items that you need. So in this league, I was really thinking I would use a Doriani's Catalyst as my mace for my Scorching Ray, because it's just very good for elemental casters. But due to it being the beginning of a league, quote unquote, like the first week, there weren't many available because not a lot of people did it Zeri, and the ones that were really expensive. So I use my knowledge of the game because there's these certain things that called screaming essences of woe that exist. You can upgrade a rare. It's basically an alch that guarantees a property. So I bought a few of these. I took a mace that has 40% LE implicit, dropped the Screaming Essence of Woe on it, and then crafted some fire damage on from my master bench, and suddenly have a mace that gives us just as much damage as a 1% off perfect Doriani's mace. It cost me about 2 chaos total to craft this. The cheapest Doriani's, not even like a very perfect one at the time, was 120 chaos. So I made an item that's pretty much better than that low-end Doriani's for less than 1/60th of what it actually cost. So that's another way that you can save money, is by doing smart things like that to upgrade your weapon. And finally, this chest I got here. So I upgraded from a tabula to a 6-link that actually had a life roll. So it's not like this is a GG chest by any means, other than the fact that it's a 6-link. But so at the time that I made this, the minimum cost for a clean 6-link was 150 Chaos Orbs. Now there's a card called Emperor of Purity. You get a set of 7, you turn them in, and you get a 6-link Holy Chainmail that is eye level 60, which is what this is. Now at the time, each of those cards only cost about 5 to 6 Chaos, and I had found one. So I bought 6 cards, I spent a total of about 36 Chaos or so, and I got the base, again, for just over 20% of what the next cheapest thing was. And then I used an Essence of Greed to guarantee a 90+ life roll. So it's little things like that where you can see an opportunity to get something cheap, or basically quote-unquote dodge the market. And if these are also things you could potentially do to flip. Like, I could potentially sell this mace that I made for 2 chaos for probably at least 15 to 20. And that's what I did with like the predecessors of this mace. So those are things you can do to make money, especially early in the league, or just get yourself good items on the cheap. Finally, this is something that I recommend you do if you have open tabs, if you ever consider playing characters in the permanent league. So this is something I'm just beginning to do. I have this dedicated tab for the gear for the character of this league. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take off all my gear, and I'm going to put it in this tab. So this way, when the league migrates into standard, I won't need to open a tab or space in one of my permanent league tabs. If I want to save this character's gear, I can just pick it up from here, which will be a remove only tab. And the same way, if I want to delete him, that'll be relatively easy because he will be completely empty. So that's and then just make sure all your cosmetics are off. Perfect. All right, and that is that. Turmoil was fun. I had a great time. It's pretty funny. I have almost 4,000 life and 2,300 mana while not wearing any gear at all. Funny. All right, so I'm gonna switch